Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really fascinating question. How did the experiences of immigrants actually change American culture?
Exactly. We've got some historical info here, and our mission, really, is to figure out the key cultural shifts that happened because of this huge wave of migration.
Yeah, because when you think about what makes American culture American, you can't really ignore the impact of all the different groups who came here. It seems mixed into everything.
Totally. And looking closely at the history, you can, really start to see how those newcomers shaped things.
Okay, so before we get too deep, there are a few terms, a few key concepts that always seem to pop up when we talk about this period. Maybe we should clarify those first.
Good idea. Yeah, understanding these will definitely help frame the bigger cultural changes we're talking about.
All right. First up, the Statue of Liberty. We all know the statue. Big gift from France in New York Harbor. But what did it actually symbolize back then, especially for immigrants?
Well, it quickly became this incredibly powerful symbol, didn't it? For people arriving by ship, it really stood for welcome, for hope, a new beginning.
You kind of imagine seeing it after that long journey across the ocean.
Exactly. It must have been just an incredible moment for so many people arriving, a promise of something better.
And many of those ships, they docked near Ellis Island, right? What exactly was Ellis Island's role?
So Ellis Island was the main processing center right there in New York Harbor, mostly for immigrants coming to the East Coast.
The main one.
Yeah, particularly from the late 1800s into the mid-1900s. It was the first piece of America millions saw. They had medical checks, legal questions. Right. It was a whole big process before they were let in.
Okay, so major gateway. But there was another one on the West Coast. Angel Island.
Right, Angel Island in San Francisco Bay. That was the main entry point for immigrants arriving on the West Coast. And, importantly, many of them were coming from Asia.
Was the experience similar to Ellis Island?
Well, not always. While Ellis Island often processed people relatively quickly, Angel Island, it's kind of known for longer detentions, tougher conditions.
Ew.
Yeah, especially for Chinese immigrants, often because of, well, discriminatory laws at the time. So, same function entry point, but the experience could be quite different.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, so you have all these people arriving. What's happening in the cities? This term urbanization comes up.
Urbanization just refers to the growth of cities. And a huge driver of that growth during this time was immigration.
People moving for work, basically.
Exactly. Immigrants needed jobs. Cities had factories and other opportunities, so they swelled in size.
Yeah.
It attracted both immigrants and people already living in the U.S. looking for work.
And in these growing cities, where were many of the poorer immigrants living? That leads us to tenements, I think.
Yeah, tenements. These were basically apartment buildings, but often really overcrowded, sometimes run down.
Not great conditions.
Often. No. Affordable housing was scarce, so many immigrants ended up in tenements. It was shelter, but yeah, conditions could be tough, overcrowding, sanitation issues, disease were real problems. Imagine trying to build a new life like that.
Definitely challenging. But even in those tough conditions, you saw the rise of ethnic communities. What were those?
Ethnic communities were essentially neighborhoods where immigrants from the same country or region tended to cluster together.
Safety in numbers, maybe. Support.
Exactly that. It offered comfort, familiarity, support in a new, sometimes bewildering land. They could speak their language, practice traditions, eat familiar food.
So they kind of kept their culture alive within these areas.
Absolutely. They often set up their own churches, shops, social clubs, newspapers. It was a way to maintain identity and support each other. Little pockets of the old country within the new one.
Okay, so these distinct communities are forming. How does that relate to the idea of the melting pot?
Ah, the melting pot. It's this idea, this metaphor that all these different immigrant cultures would sort of blend together, mix, and create a completely new, unified American culture.
Like all the differences just melt away.
That's the image, yeah. Different ingredients go in, and one new thing comes out.
Sounds a bit idealistic, maybe. Which brings us to nativism. That suggests it wasn't always a smooth melt, right?
Precisely. Nativism is basically a preference for native-born inhabitants over immigrants. It often fueled prejudice, discrimination, sometimes outright hostility towards newcomers.
Just because they were different or from somewhere else?
Yeah, based on where they came from, their religion, their customs. It's a reminder that the welcome wasn't universal. There was definite pushback.
And sometimes that pushback became official policy, like the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Exactly. The Chinese Exclusion Act, passed in 1882, is a stark example. It specifically banned Chinese laborers from immigrating.
Just laborers from China?
Yes, driven by those nativist sentiments and economic fears. It had a devastating impact on Chinese communities already here. And basically, shut down immigration from China for decades. A really significant and discriminatory piece of legislation.
Wow. Okay, one more term, the Americanization movement. What was that about?
The Americanization movement involved organized efforts, often by civic groups or even the government, to assimilate immigrants into what was seen as mainstream American culture.
So trying to make them more American.
Kind of. It often meant pushing them to learn English, adopt American customs and values, and sometimes, actively discouraging their native languages or traditions. A real push towards conformity.
Okay, got it. So understanding those concepts helps a lot. Now let's really dig into how all this whole immigrant experience actually changed American culture. The growth of cities, these ethnic communities, they must have been huge factors.
Oh, absolutely huge. When you have large groups of people from different backgrounds concentrating in cities, the cities themselves change fundamentally. It's not just population growth, it's a cultural infusion.
And the ethnic communities, even in tough spots like tenements.
Yeah, even with the hardships, these neighborhoods became incredibly vibrant hubs. They were places where traditions weren't just preserved, they evolved.
Yeah.
You saw new foods appearing, different music, languages being spoken, festivals celebrated.
Like the laboratories of culture.
In a way, yes, they added so much texture and diversity to urban life. Imagine walking through those neighborhoods. The sights, the sounds, the smells would have been this incredible mix.
So it feels like these communities were maybe closer to the melting pot idea, but on a smaller scale.
Right.
Within the neighborhood itself.
That's an interesting way to put it. But even then, the broader melting pot concept for the whole country,
Yeah.
it gets complicated, as we saw with nativism.
Right, because the reality wasn't just a simple blend. You had conflict, discrimination, like the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Exactly. Those things showed that the integration wasn't always smooth or fair or equal.
Hmm.
There were real tensions and barriers. It wasn't just a happy mix. There were power dynamics involved.
And the Americanization movement really underlines that point, doesn't it? It wasn't just cultures naturally bumping into each other. There were deliberate efforts to push assimilation in one particular direction.
Definitely. It shows that there was often pressure, sometimes explicit demands, for immigrants to abandon parts of their heritage and conform to a specific Anglo-American model.
Hmm.
Learn English, act American.
So it's this complex picture. You've got these vibrant communities keeping traditions alive, but also facing pressure to assimilate and sometimes outright rejection.
It really highlights the resilience and adaptation involved, doesn't it? Immigrants weren't just passive. They were navigating this new world,
Yeah.
holding on to parts of their identity while also contributing new things to the mix.
Can we talk specifics like food and music? How did those change?
Oh, absolutely. Think about food. So much of what we consider American food today has immigrant roots. Pizza, pasta, obviously Italian-American.
Hot dogs, hamburgers.
German-American influences there, tacos, burritos, Latin American contributions, bagels, Eastern European, Jewish immigrants. The list goes on and on.
Right. These foods arrived, maybe changed a bit over time using local ingredients.
Adapted to local tastes, and eventually became mainstream. They're woven into the fabric of American cuisine now. It's hard to imagine it without them.
Totally. What about music? Similar story.
Very similar.
Mm-hmm.
American popular music is just this incredible blend. Jazz, for instance, deeply rooted in African-American experiences, but also absorbing European harmonies and instruments.
And things like country music.
Big influences from Irish and Scottish folk traditions brought over by immigrants. Polka came with Central Europeans. Latin rhythms have infused pop, rock, jazz. It's a constant mixing and evolution.
It really does sound like a culture that's constantly being reshaped and enriched by these waves of new people and ideas.
It absolutely is. So for summarizing, immigration was clearly this powerful engine of cultural change.
Right. It shaped the cities through urbanization and these dynamic ethnic communities.
Mm-hmm. And those communities, despite challenges like tenements, were vital for preserving and evolving cultural traditions.
But we also see the complexities. The melting pot idea wasn't the full story because of forces like nativism.
And discriminatory laws, and the pressure from things like the Americanization movement, it shows the integration process was often fraught with tension and inequality.
Yet despite all those challenges, the legacy is undeniable, isn't it? The contributions are just embedded in American life now.
Absolutely. From the food we eat, the music we hear, the languages spoken, the diverse perspectives. It's all part of the ongoing story of America. It's about adaptation, resilience, and the constant redefinition of what American means.
That's a great way to put it. The story isn't over.
Not at all. It continues to unfold with every new group that arrives and adds their thread to the tapestry.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe a few things for our listeners to chew on. Consider this. How do you see the influence of different immigrant cultures in your own life or community today?
Yeah, can you pinpoint specific foods or music, traditions, even words that have become part of the mainstream thanks to immigration?
And maybe think about those tensions we discussed between fitting in, assimilating, and holding on to one's cultural heritage. How do you think those dynamics still play out for people in America today?
Good questions. Reflecting on those might offer a deeper appreciation for just how much the immigrant experience has shaped and continues to shape American culture.